Hello and welcome to Castle Combe for the Dunlop Great and British Motorsport Festival package. This rural circuit in Wiltshire, very, very quick, highly bumpy, and the first of the races coming out onto the grid now is the Radical Club Cup. The highlights for this first race with Darren Luke and Simon Tilling sitting there on the front row of the grid. Colin Miller and the yet unbeaten Jonathan Wright on row 2. There's a stall for Simon Tilling on the outside of the front row of the grid. Thankfully, looks as though all of the field have passed him without there being any contact, and as they now head round through Folly and charge up Avon Rise for the first time, it looks as though it's Darren Luke that's going side by side with the man from Ballymena in Ireland, Colin Miller, up towards Quarry. They come for the first time. It is Luke that has taken the lead of the race. Colin Miller down in second place. Number 12 there, running very wide indeed, is Steve Burgess as they head down the farm straight and up towards the S's for the first time of asking. Out of the S's they come, and you can see now that Darren Luke in the lead of the race is starting to pull away from the red car of Colin Miller in second place. Third place is the 6 times race winner so far this season in the Radical Club Cup, the man from Cambridgeshire, Jonathan Wright. Now Colin Miller is very much closing on our race leader Darren Luke. That's Gary Kane in fourth position, just coming through shot there, and Miller has taken the lead of the race. So Colin Miller leads the race as they come out of Quarry for the second time. Down the straight once more and in towards the braking area for the S's. Here's the squabble for third, fourth and fifth positions, with Jonathan Wright and Gary Kane having a squabble. Trying to join in further back through the order there. Looks like it's Paul Steele who sits there in fifth place, and now Gary Kane nipping at the heels of the championship leading car in the hands of Jonathan Wright, side by side as they head up Avon Rise towards Corrie Corner. Kane goes through, so down to fourth place now for Jonathan Wright. He won't be very happy with that at all. Not only is he down to fourth, he's now having to fend off the attentions of the car behind, that being Paul Steele. Further down through the order, here's Richard Carver having a good battle with one of the Club Sport cars. That's number 13, which is the car in the hands of Simon Garmston. He leads the Club Sport class at this stage of the race for the original 1100cc Kawasaki engined Radicals. The race leaders now amongst the backmarker Lappery, and there's almost contact there with one of the backmarkers as Colin Miller tried to feed his way through. It looks as though Darren Luke has retaken the lead as a result of that. Gary Kane also now in that number 19 car, not very far away at all. The front three head round through Tower Corner up towards Bobby's, with very little to choose between all of them. Still some good battles going on further down through the field. Richard Carver fighting with Mike Roberts, that is there, with the race leaders bearing down on them as they head through Folly and up Avon Rise again. Well, Colin Miller has already got very close to some of the back markers as he's trying to feed his way through. Gary Kane seizes the opportunity. He goes through and steals second place away from Darren Luke. Well, Darren Luke now is going to have to try and slide his way back alongside, which is what he's trying to do. The back markers will try to get out of the way, but they're also getting in the way as well. It's allowing Jonathan Wright and Paul Steele to close as well. They all come through the S's, with this time Gary Kane going right the way around the outside of Richard Carver. Lost a little bit of time. Darren Luke there in third place still hasn't safely negotiated back markers. We're side by side for fourth and fifth place, with Jonathan Wright just about hanging on to fourth. Well, you can see just how much of an advantage Gary Kane now has, but it is Colin Miller who comes through and secures honours for the first time this season in the Radical Clubman's Cup. He comes through and takes the victory. Gary Kane is second, Jonathan Wright, Darren Luke, Paul Steele and Charles Loughran round out the top 6. So we move on to the second of the 2 Radical Club Cup races here at Castle Combe, and this time it's Colin Miller and Gary Kane that sit there on the front row of the grid. Colin Miller in the red car already, having claimed victory earlier on today. The red lights come on, and when they go out, it's a great start from Colin Miller from the front row of the grid. It looks as though there's problems further down through the field, with certainly Richard Ferns' car going nowhere from the very rear of the field. They charge up towards Folly for the first time, and from pole position it's Colin Miller that leads. Gary Kane is there in second position. It looks as though it might be Paul Steele that's come through into third place, with Jonathan Wright and Darren Luke fighting over fourth and fifth thereafter. They head round through Quarry Corner for the first time. That looks as though it's number 23, Simon Tilling, the local man who does a lot of racing here down at Castle Combe, who had those problems in the first race, slowly trying to feed his way up through the order. They come out of the S's for the first time, and Gary Kane sitting there in second place. Through in shot there goes number 61. That is the car of Nigel Place, trying to thread his way up through the field. But it's Colin Miller, as he did in the first race, trying to sprint away. Lock brakes from Gary Kane in second place as they come round through Tower Corner. That might allow Darren Luke the opportunity to dive up the inside as they get towards the right and left flicks at Bobby's. He's not quite able to make it through and therefore try and steal any advantage. So as they now make their way up towards Camp Corner for the first time, it's the man from Ballymena in Ireland, Colin Miller, that leads. Gary Kane in second place. There's Darren Luke, Jonathan Wright, number 3, sitting there in fourth position, the man who leads the championship and until earlier on this weekend was unbeaten in the Radical Club Cup. They come round through Folly with Our race leader trying to break away. Jonathan Wright trying to pull a move and gain a place if at all possible. He's through and up to third place now, with Darren Luke down to fourth position. And not only is he up to third place, he's got the second place car of Gary Kane not that far ahead of him. There goes number 12, that's Steve Burgess. The car that sits behind him on the road now is Simon Tilling, the man who started from the front row of the grid in the first race, slowly threaded his way up through the order in that race. He's now having to gain places in this one as well. Our race leader, Colin Miller, heads out of Old Paddock Bend, down Hammerdown and up towards Tower Corner, with daylight between himself and Gary Kane, looking as though it's remained reasonably static. Here comes number 23, Simon Tilling, still gaining places. You can see he's got through and past Steve Burgess. He also gains a place on Nigel Place. And as they head out of Tower Corner, he's trying to thrust himself further up the order on the run down towards Bobby's. Well, as they come through this time, the order within the top 5 still remains the same. Jonathan Wright, our championship leader, sitting there in third place. That's the car of Darren Luke in fourth position, with Paul Steele completing the top 5. Certainly Simon Tilling, the progress he's making, he's one of the quickest cars that we've got out there on the circuit. He's gaining places hand over fist, but the further he climbs up through the order, the more difficult to gain those places it will become. He now is up into what will be 7th place and is trying to slide his way through, gains a place on Simon Fish. Simon Fish will now try and hook himself onto the rear end. And as they once more come out of the S's, the top 5, we'll try and keep an eye on exactly where Simon Tilling is behind. That's number 24, Paul Steele. He sits there in 5th position at the moment and is still hanging on to the coattails of those ahead. The top 5 looking fairly equidistantly spread. Once more, there's lock brakes from Gary Kane. That might be the opportunity that Jonathan Wright has to steal his way up into 2nd place. He's already through. He's now got Darren Luke through as well, and all of a sudden Gary Kane, from being in 2nd, finds himself down in 4th place. Just a very small mistake from Gary Kane, but the consequence is quite severe. So our race leader, Colin Miller, in the Radical PR6, powered by its 250 brake horsepower Suzuki 1500cc engine, continues around the 1.85 mile circuit here at Castle Combe. And you can see now that the advantage that he has is slowly increasing all of the time between himself and Jonathan Wright, who is now there in 2nd place. So the man who's remained unbeaten so far this season looks as though he's going to lose the opportunity for victory once more. Into the pits, by the look of things, comes Gary Kane. There's problems with that car, the car that was going so very well in the early stages. That does, of course, allow Simon Tilling to gain another place that time. So the man who has done a lot of racing, as we said, here in the Castle Combe GT Championship, is now going to feature inside the top 6. Good battles further down through the field. That's number 18 car in the hands of Charles Loughran, the Mansell Motorsport run car, the Radical SR3, powered by the 250 brake horsepower 1500cc Suzuki engine. And he's got Nigel Place directly ahead of him on the road. Well, this is Gary Kane in the pits. The mechanics having a good look round what looked like very, very warm brakes indeed. Well, we know that Castle Combe is a very quick circuit. We know that it's very hard on brakes, and clearly Gary Kane's car is struggling in the temperatures here at Castle Combe today. Colin Miller now starting to get into some of the back marker lappery. That's Richard Ferns, who stalled on the grid now, going a lap down. The marshals waving their blue flags and forewarning the back marker that the quicker front runners are fast approaching. Jonathan Wright will want to try and negotiate Richard Ferns as quickly as possible, because he's got Darren Luke not very far behind him at all. Out of the S's they come. Slide their way through as they now make their way down through Hammerdown and up towards Tower Corner. There's Darren Luke in that 3rd place, working very hard indeed at the wheel of his PR6. And as we now head further down through the order, this looks as though it is the number 33 car of Bill Henderson who's fighting tooth and nail with Phil Abbott, co-founder of Radical Sports Cars. Well, the race leader, you can see, has safely negotiated the back markers, Colin Miller. There's been some tweaks done to the car over the previous week or so by the Transpower team, and certainly whatever they've done to Colin Miller's car, it has transformed it. Poor old Gary Kane looking destined for retirement. Looks as though the brake master cylinder's being adjusted by the mechanics there. Here comes the number 13 car that still leads at the moment the Club Sport class. That's Simon Garmston. As into the pits comes Charles Loughran with a very, very smoky looking Radical SR3. Looks as though whatever the problem is, Charles Loughran is taking off the belts and is heading that car into retirement. Join us again soon for some more Great British action.